Good morning, everyone. Hello, interwebs. Happy Wednesday. Hopefully, everyone's having a good morning so far and you've had your coffee. It's good to see all of you. So, I'm back on Restream. I tried Riverside FM Live and there were so many technical issues. I have no idea what was going on. Pretty much all of the streams that I'd set up with the RTMP URL failed. So, you could pretty much only watch it on YouTube. So I'm back on Restream. I missed it. It looks like they actually redesigned it, which is cool. So it looks great. Hopefully all of you can see and hear me. I will be monitoring the chat. Look, I really want this to be an interactive session. I don't want to really talk at you. This is going to be a culmination of all the lessons learned that I have gone through, the challenges I've been through, the things that I've learned from instructors, from courses I've taken on directing. So, University of YouTube, in this case, University of Livestream. So definitely post your questions, post your comments on chat. I'll be monitoring. Now, I am monitoring from Restream chat, and not all social chats will show up. So I know for a fact, for sure, that that comments and questions will come in from Facebook, LinkedIn, and I believe YouTube. So if for any reason I'm not responding to any of your questions or comments, I'm probably not seeing them. So just make sure you're watching from YouTube. That's pretty much, at least from the feedback that I've gotten, the best quality so far. So definitely. But anyway, welcome to Nightlight Live. I'm going to go ahead and get started with the PowerPoint and we'll go from there. All right, so lessons learned in directing TV series at Night Studios. We'll go ahead and get right into it. So for those of you who have absolutely no clue who I am, I'm the director and executive producer at Night Studios. Night Studios is a TV and film production company that both my wife and I are partners at. Night Studios is actually a subsidiary within Night Group. We own 5 companies, including a coffee company, believe it or not, and different experiential marketing agencies like Night Inc. We also own a publishing company called Night Publishing, but we pretty much fell into this role, actually, believe it or not, driven by a client request. So we had a cybersecurity vendor come to us and say, hey, look, we'd really like a short film. This sort of the days of people posting 15, 20 page white papers on LinkedIn, hoping people will download it and read it to learn about your company or product are pretty much gone. 64% of buyers actually make their purchase decisions off of video now. So we are definitely in the age of video and visual storytelling. So a company came to us and asked us to create a short film that underscored why companies needed their product. And when Mel and I did, it was their most successful marketing campaign right before their acquisition. And so Mel and I looked at each other and said, hey, look, this was a lot of fun. We've both been in cybersecurity for combined years of 43 years. And we decided that, it was time to move on, that we really wanted to reinvent ourselves and really fully explore this new career in Hollywood and directing and being a cinematographer, director of photography. So we went all in and we built the studio. We're now on our 5th TV series. We have a total of 7 TV series right now, 2 in the pipe. So we're super excited. It's been growing really quickly. It's definitely been a journey, and we've learned a lot along the way. We've gone through the school of hard knocks. It's definitely been a process. So in any case, right now, so far, we've accumulated roughly over 1,000 hours of on-set directing for across the different franchises. So, while it's not tens of thousands of hours or, anything longer, it's enough, I feel like, at this point to be able to provide guidance and help you by sort of telling my story of what I've been through as a director and learn from my mistakes and also learn from my wins. So in the process, again, I've directed 5 TV series in procedural crime dramas. That's pretty much what Night Studios focuses on, is procedural crime dramas, specifically within the cyber genre of entertainment. There's been a lot of trial by fire. There really is a lack of formal training and videos out there on actually how to direct. If you go onto YouTube and you do a search for directing and really, I guess, just a course, if you will. There's a lot of courses on color grading. There's a lot of courses that cover a lot of post-production and pre-production processes, but the actual process of directing, I really have found very little out there, which is why I am really committed to creating more content in this area. This has been a process of both directing crew and actors. So that's what I'm going to be covering today, is not just only directing your individual department heads, your individual members of your crew, but also directing actors as well. I'm going to be quoting a lot from Judith Weston. I learned a lot of directing actors from her and her book. I would definitely urge you to go read it if you haven't yet. So, hey, Emmanuel, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the compliments on the live stream. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me well. So definitely, again, post your questions and comments on the chat. For those of you who have not heard of it or heard of her, Judith is an amazing icon in the sphere of directing. She's authored actually not just one, but multiple books on directing actors. And I'll be covering that today because it's something, again, that very little content is out there, very little curriculum is out there on in actually directing. So let's go ahead and move on. Let's talk about key responsibilities as a director. I can't emphasize this enough. You must understand the script. Now, at Night Studios, I've had I have the privilege of being able to also be a screenwriter. I love writing. For those of you who are not familiar with my experience, I published the first book on hacking connected cars. I spent 23 years as a hacker in cybersecurity and love writing. I've published numerous white papers out there on vulnerability discoveries. And one of the things that I'm most passionate about in my new life as a director in Hollywood is being able to be part of the writing room and writing the screenplays, writing the scripts. And there's a lot of books, there's a lot of curriculum out there on writing, on screenwriting. And one of the things that I would urge you to do is I just published a new video on Behind the Lens as well as on Nightlight for a previous live stream on Save the Cat and the 15-beat structure from STC. There's a book out there I would urge you to get. It's called Save the Cat. There's different books that have come out as ancillary books underneath that since Blake Snyder wrote the original book. Save the Cat writes for TV, and other Save the Cat books like Save the Cat writes novels. So I would definitely recommend you take a look at that. It will help you better understand writing scripts, writing screenplays, and telling stories. So understanding the script is super important, deciphering its themes, character motivations, and intended emotional impact on the audience. If you don't understand what it is that the screenwriter, if it's not you as the director, if you have a completely different team of writers, or you're not involved in that process, you can't go on set and expect to start directing a film or directing a TV series when you haven't read the script. You need to understand what the characters' motivations are, what journey the characters are on, what their flaws are. I talked about this in character development in the new video I published yesterday. And that's on Behind the Lens. For those of you who are not subscribed to it, you can subscribe to the audio podcast. It's also available as video form on our YouTube channel. So casting is also incredibly important. That's a huge responsibility, of course, and casting the right person for each character according to the series vision, it will, in my opinion, make or break the film or the TV show. Again, if you haven't read the script, how can you cast the individual roles? You need to understand what the story is being told, what are the individual character arcs, and who these individual characters are. And in the video I published yesterday, there is a great quote from Daniel Levy. For those of you who've seen that TV series Schitt's Creek, it's a great TV series if you haven't watched it. But they did a BTS interview with Daniel where he talked about the fact that he got so frustrated with his father in the writing room because he wanted to spend so much time on character development. And the best quote was when his dad went to Daniel and said, "Look, we need to know who these people are before we do anything, before we go to set, before we further exploit the script. We need to know who these characters are." And I can't emphasize that enough, as well as understanding who these characters are before you try and cast them. Visualizing the story is another huge responsibility as a director. You want to create that visual style, the shot composition, the framing, the overall aesthetic. I get very involved in the minutia with Mel on, as our director of photography, even going as far as telling her, "Hey, look, these are the focal lengths I want. I don't want DZO film glass. I want airy glass, or I want an anamorphic lens for this. We're outside. We're going to get those really beautiful light aberrations that you see in anamorphic lenses." So, really important to your role as a director is just visualization, understanding the mood, the story that's being told is important in establishing that overall aesthetic. Directing actors, this is going to be something that I got to tell you, it's an ongoing learning process for me in directing actors. Just remember the fact that when you're directing actors, you're directing individual personalities, right? You're not directing jobs, you're directing personalities. And that's really true in any management position. If you think about it, you're not really managing jobs, you're managing people. You want to ensure that performances are authentic and compelling. And this is something that I learned the hard way in previous productions. And you'll hear this quote said a lot where, just film. Your first movie is going to be bad. Your first TV show is going to be bad. Your first everything is going to be bad. But you're not going to learn and you're not going to get better unless you're actually doing it. I would love to go back and take what I've learned now and reproduce some of our previous shows, but that's just not in the cards. But that's okay, because if you look at the first film, for example, from Steven Spielberg and some of the other famous directors out there like Ron Howard, they're not so great, right? There's this evolution of just quality and capabilities as a director that you're going to go through, and your first film isn't going to be good, but at least you're out there filming. All right. Just a reminder, just go ahead, and I am monitoring chat, so feel free to post any questions or comments along the way, and I'm happy to sort of stop and answer them. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So pre-production planning is also super important as well. Establishing the vision for the series, you're going to want to make sure that you understand that you're the one actually setting the vision. It's not going to be the actors that you're directing. It's not going to be your department heads. It's going to be you. Ultimately, the buck stops with you as the director, and defining and establishing that vision is one of your most important responsibilities. There are resources involved in time, budget, and personnel. You want to make sure that you have everything that you need in the budget. Obviously, maintaining and meeting that budget. If you don't, for example, have a line producer, if you're solely in charge of defining and adhering to a budget, that's going to be a very important responsibility for you as a director. The thing about it is with budgets is, your budgets are obviously going to evolve and change and hopefully increase over time. Every production is different. Every production has a different budget. Our budgets have definitely increased over a time since our very first show. And with the increased budget, you have the ability to also have a lot of waste, and really start to throw money around, realizing that, just you start to realize that there are more things you want to buy instead of rent. Those sort of questions need to be answered and are done along the way. So risk mitigation is important of challenges in production. You need to be able to identify and mitigate risks before you head on set. So this is important, for example, in location management, anything that could potentially happen, monitoring weather conditions. If you're going to be shooting outside, if there's some sort of torrential downpour or a hurricane, any sort of act of God, you want to be aware of it. You want to make sure that you mitigate any risks that could potentially occur in production, because it could be incredibly costly later trying to fix that or work through those challenges at that time. Casting to ensure the right actors are casted for each role. Okay, look, here's the thing. It is so important that you're involved in the casting process. And again, starting with an understanding of who these characters are before you get into the audition room. How can you have actors audition for characters you just simply don't know beyond the name of the character? You're going to end up casting the wrong people for the role. Somebody that just doesn't maybe look like an FBI agent, or someone that maybe doesn't look like they would be the mother of seven, or whatever it may be. But understanding who the right person is that just perfectly fits that character is important. And I'm sure you've seen TV shows or movies where someone was playing a part that it just didn't seem like they fit into. I can think of a couple, but this is really important. All right. Script development and modifications. Actually developing and modifying the script before you actually go into production is important. Obviously, production is fluid, and you're going to constantly have to change things on the fly. I've done that. It's going to happen, but try and get as much of that done in pre-production is important. Just again, understanding what lies ahead so you don't trip on that rock at the time of production is important. Location management. This is something that is very time consuming, but critical to the story you're telling. And historically, Mel has covered location management, making sure that you're working with location hosts to make sure that you have access entry codes or keys or ability to get into the location is important. And just mitigating all of those potential risks. Time is money in production, and it can be a lot of money. So having locations nailed down and being a part of that location management process as a director is important. Also making sure that the location fits the story, fits the scene. If you have someone who's an incredibly wealthy person, for example, maybe they're a billionaire, but your location manager who you've delegated that responsibility to selects a house that doesn't make sense for a billionaire to be living in, that's hard to tell that kind of story with that level of authenticity and accuracy. So making sure that you're involved in location management is incredibly important as well. Understanding what locations you're going to shoot in what order is obviously important as well. I will go down a list of all of the scenes and all the locations with Mel and make sure that the locations and their locality to each other is taken into consideration on what order we shoot those locations in. So, for example, if one location is clear across town in Las Vegas, and it's going to take 45 minutes to get there, maybe I'll decide to shoot a completely different location that's closer to that other set, and make sure that we're actually strategic about the locations that we shoot in. This is all too important when you're trying to manage time. And remember, when you're directing a production, again, time is money, and you're looking at time and a half in a lot of cases when you go over 8 to 10 hours, depending on the laws of your local area, but the labor laws. But for us, it's 10 and 1.5. So anything after 10 hours, if we've got cast and crew over 10 hours on set, we're going to be paying time and a half. So it's incredibly important that the decisions you make around when you shoot and where you shoot and what order can actually directly impact your budget and your bottom line. The table read and rehearsals are also very important in pre-production. This is something I really look forward to and I enjoy a great deal. This is an opportunity for you to sit down with each and every actor as they read their lines, and also sit down with your crew and get them ready for the production. With table reads, you want to make sure that you ask your actors to read the lines in their character. It's not about sitting there and making sure that they can pronounce certain words, or really an opportunity for them to have additional time to memorize their lines and go off book. But you want to make sure that they're as authentic as possible in how they're going to deliver their lines on set. This can be difficult for some actors, and it's also something that I have to remind actors of, even in the middle of the table read, is making sure that they're reading the lines the way that they're going to deliver it on set. So you, as the director, can determine if you'd like to see something said or portrayed in a different way. Script analysis is another important process here, and that's having a thematic understanding of the central theme and messages that the story is telling. The story being told and the resulting emotional impact on your audience is a key responsibility for you. You need to understand what it is that the screenwriter, or if you're the screenwriter, hopefully that will give you a home team advantage, and better understanding what story is trying to be told. But if you're not the screenwriter, then you need to make sure you fully dissect and fully understand that story and what's being told. Analyze the character and understanding their motivations, their background, and their character arc. What is that journey that the character is going on in the story? And for example, in The Matrix, in Neo's journey, or Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, his journey in staying away from the dark side and not letting his fear overtake him, and becoming the next Darth Vader, or Darth Maul. But understanding the journey and the arc for that character is important as the storyteller, as the chief storyteller, if you will, on a production. Relationships between the characters is important as well, and understanding the dynamics that drive that plot. Establishing those relationships and telling the story of those relationships is key to telling that story. For example, in Save the Cat, you've got what's called the B story, and this could be a bromance or a romance between characters. So the relationship between those characters is super important, and you understanding as the director what those relationships are, to make sure that those relationships are told properly in that story. Tone and style of the series, as well as the visual imagery, is important. What visual elements can you add to the scene to support that story? For example, if I have hackers on set as part of the story, maybe they should have laptops in front of them. What other key visual elements can help in telling that story? What supports that story to make it more authentic and more real, or a person more human, and being able to be relatable for your audience. The tone and style of the series is important. Understanding if it's a comedic, dramatic sort of story. For example, how much sense would it make as the director if you didn't read the screenplay and you're directing something dark and moody, or sad, and you put them in comedic situations or comedic sets or use comedic visuals? It wouldn't make much sense, for example, for the movie The Matrix or John Wick, right? With John Wick, it was that very dark, moody, orange and teal color grading, and the scenes were very dark and dreary. The new Batman, I know it's not called Dark Knight, but I can't remember what the new Batman series is called, but it was always dark. It was always nighttime. I don't know if you saw that movie, but it was always nighttime and always very dark. So understanding The screenplay, to be able to tell those visual stories with imagery and additional props or set dressing that you can add, is important. And also part of the actual sound design, as well as the pacing of the production. The script analysis is also an important responsibility for you as the director. Collaboration between the department heads, the producers, for a shared understanding of the nuances and vision for the story. I will not go into production until I've sent the script to our executive producers and co-executive producers. You want to make sure that everyone who is above the line, the department heads, the producers, that they all know what story is being told, that there's a shared understanding of that vision. Hey, Devin, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Sounds like Chief Authenticity Manager, yeah, is one of the director's main hats. How do you make sure something is authentic when it's something that most of anyone, audience, actor, or director, has never actually seen? Oh, good question, Devin, as usual. First of all, thanks for joining us. Yeah, I mean, I think the title of Chief Authenticity Manager is a good title. You want to make sure that the story and the characters are authentic. You want to make sure that your audience can relate to them. I don't know, Devin, if you saw yesterday's video with character development yet, but I covered the importance of your audience being able to relate to that character, become emotionally invested in that character, is important. Um, Making sure something is authentic when it's something that most of anyone has never actually seen yet. I think just that's the sort of home team advantage, if you will, of being both the director and the screenwriter, because you're the one who actually wrote that story. So it gives me, as the screenwriter and director, uh, an advantage, I think, in really fully intimately understanding the story and how to authentically tell that story. Um, I'm actually working with an individual right now on a new series for someone who was involved in the mob, and so it's a complete um, uh, change from our previous genre of storytelling in cyber to now organized crime, which is kind of related, but with the mob. And so, making sure that that authenticity is there and that the story is authentic. What I do is I'm spending a lot of time with the nephew of that individual who we're telling the story about. And interestingly enough, um, it's got a lot of attention in the past, before the gentleman died, by some pretty well-known actors in, for example, the casino. I'm excited about embarking on this, but as far as authenticity, it's just spending a lot of time with whoever was most intimately involved with that person, especially if it's based on a true story. Collaboration, again, working with your department heads, producers, for a shared understanding of that vision. Just making sure that everyone is on the same page is important. Um, Conducting actor workshops. Now, this is obviously with the time permitting. Historically, at Night Studios, we haven't had the time to do actor workshops. It's not a make or break situation, but if you can give your actors an opportunity to spend more time with each other prior to going to production, it's going to help a lot with one particular important facet here, which is chemistry. Chemistry between your actors is super important. And you can help those actors build that chemistry by having those workshops before you actually arrive on set. So they have an opportunity to really interact with each other. If you don't have time to do any sort of workshopping before heading to production, I usually do this in the table read, the audition. I'm sorry, not auditions. The table read, the rehearsals. This is an opportunity for your actors to get to know each other and meet each other if they've never met before. So establishing again that chemistry outside of a workshop can be done at a table read. Feedback and revisions on the script with the screenwriters. This is an opportunity for you to also get back, if you are working with a team of writers or another writer and you're not the screenwriter on this. getting revisions back to them and making sure that that script is in fact the final revision. And by the way, I've been bit by this in the past, so it's important that I emphasize this today. Make sure that your actors and your crew members all have the latest version of the script. We use a cloud software as a service platform called Studio Binder, and it allows actors electronic access to scripts. So every time that there's a new script revision, our actors and our crew members have access to that latest script. It uses color coding, which is pretty industry standard. Names of colors, for example, tan revision, purple revision, pink revision, color names for revisions to make sure that everyone understands what revision we're actually on when we go to production. Devin asks, are the workshops and rehearsals the same thing? No, you think of a rehearsal as more of a table read where you're all sitting together and going line by line through that. Workshops, it's the same process, but it workshops can typically also be performed on a set location. So, for example, Mel and I are in the process of building or getting ready to build a set, a studio, where we'll be able to build multiple sets there and be able to actually do workshops where we can bring actors onto those sets that we've built and actually give those actors the set where they'll actually be performing when it comes time to production. So workshops are, I feel like, just a lot more engaging and a lot more interactive, whereas table reads are, your rehearsals are more sitting down at a table, not moving, and actually having any sort of visual body language acting to support the story. So workshops are, I would say, a lot more interactive, and there's a lot more physical and body movement, allowing your characters to really move through the scene with the different actors. So good question, Devin. What happens when communication and direction fails? So we're going to start to talk about the lessons learned that I've had as a director in some of our previous productions, which will be kind of interesting with anecdotal information. But you need to be able to make quick, decisive moves on set when communication and direction fails. For example, crew that wants to direct. Okay. I'm going to be really careful here. But look, here's the thing. As a director, one of the things that I learned very early on is there's a lot of people on your crew who want to work up to being a director. So they're going to try and direct. It's it's something that I know that a lot of directors deal with in their job, and it's something I was faced with pretty much starting from our very first production. Um, and it's something that some directors are very adamant about, for example, in referring to a director of photography versus referring to them as a cinematographer or a camera operator. I know that it's a religious debate between whether or not a DP should be called a director of photography, because there's a lot of directors who believe and want to maintain that there's really only one director on set. And I agree with that. I agree that there should only be one chief. Otherwise, you have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? If you have everyone on your crew thinking they're a director and wanting to direct, you have a real problem. So making sure that you understand and enforce the fact that you are the only director, and quickly nipping it in the bud when you have a DP trying to direct, or in the case that the anecdote I'll provide you later, when a first AD tries to direct. And it happens, and you need to be able to reset those crew members. You need to be able to quickly address it and take them aside quietly, on their own. Don't do it in front of the other crew members. You never want to do that, of course. But just taking them aside and making sure that you reinforce the fact that their job, make sure that they stay in their lane, and that they're not attempting to direct. So I'm going to give you some some things, some stories of things that have happened on the Night Studio set. I do see that we have some of our cast here attending this live stream this morning, so it's good to see all of you. Thank you for attending. I'm gonna. These are all specific situations that have happened, so I'm gonna not use names, but dealing with, for example, psychological breaks. Okay, what is a psychological break? When you are in production, you're working a lot of long hours. You're getting home super late. Maybe you're getting home at 11 o'clock midnight, and you still have to get out call sheets because the call sheets weren't sent out enough ahead of time, or you have some work that you need to do on the script. For example, for last minute changes, you just can't go to bed right away. So you're not your crew, your cast, no one's really getting much sleep. So tempers run high. People get emotional. We did have a situation where a PA had a psychological break on set. And you, as a director, and PA, for those of you who aren't aware, means production assistant. They're responsible for moving things around, being a runner, for example, running to get food. Just they're your hands on set, lifting heavy things. So people get emotional when they're tired. People get emotional when they're mad. You need to be able to quickly handle this. You need to take them aside privately. You need to talk with them. You need to see what you can do as the director to help them. Maybe they're upset about something and they just need to talk about it in order to get through it, and then quickly move back to action and actually producing your film or your TV show. So dealing with those psychological breaks are important. Dealing with the DP who thinks they're the director, this is going to happen. There's a lot of crew members that you'll be working with, like I mentioned earlier, who want to be a director and want to develop their skill sets as a director, and get better, and move into a position of a director. And this is also very common with first ADs, because they're being a first assistant director in order to get experience on how to become a director. So that's super important as well. Dealing with those situations. I had a DP that we're no longer working with, where he straight up told me no when I had asked for a particular camera movement. Um, he was very adamant about the fact that he wasn't going to do that shot. Uh, your job as a DP, the job of a DP, is to get the shots that the director needs, the director wants. The director has commitments to co-producers, co-executive producers, and getting those shots in order to make sure that that story is told is one of the biggest responsibilities of your DP. So, it was a very infuriating, very emotional, intense situation. I had to pull that DP aside and quickly deal with it in order to recalibrate them and make sure they understood that, someone on your crew yelling no to you as the director, you have to work through those things. You need to address it. If you're someone who's a pacifist and you don't like confrontation, and you don't like dealing with drama, that's something you're gonna need to quickly get over as a director. All right. Safety concerns and hazards. This is important as well. Usually you'll have a safety officer. uh, you'll have a situation where somebody may have that as their dedicated role and responsibilities, ensuring the safety of the cast and crew on set. But you, as the director, you're also responsible for that. Or maybe you don't have the budget to hire a safety officer. Making sure that you identify and deal with safety concerns is a real problem. Let me give you an example. We were on a production once where with one of our franchises, and a lot of the stands that hold lights, or really just whether it's a C stand or anything, will have an arm. And that arm typically will come out to actually eye level. And you want to make sure that, for example, you put tennis balls at the end of those to make sure that people can see them, to make sure that no one walks into them. And that's exactly what happened. We had an individual on crew walk right into one of those stands and almost put his eye out. So identifying and quickly dealing with safety concerns, even if that means having to yell cut, even if that means not being able to roll into action and speed um, until that safety hazard is dealt with. Look, you are pretty much the CEO, if you will, on set. That's your job as director, as CEO. Um, your job is and responsibility is the safety of your cast and crew. When you identify a safety concern, you need to deal with it lest someone get hurt or worse, even die on set, like we saw with Rust, right? Even though there was a gun safety officer there, the DP, I'm sure many of you heard this story on Rust on set. The DP was mistakenly shot and died. So safety is a lot more than just about preventing cuts and bruises. It can also mean saving someone's life. Location issues, this is something that is a real problem. There have been situations where we never got confirmation on a location until we were actually on the way to that location. Look, I'm airing out a lot of Night Studios dirty laundry right now, but look, here's the thing. I'm a big believer in fail often and fail forward. And you'll see me quote that a lot. We've taken our bruises, we've made mistakes, and if I can help all of you as you work on your first feature or work on your first series, then and learn from my mistakes, then I'll do that. And that's really what it's all about. It's for me, it's not about putting out content about how perfect I am or how perfect the studio is. It's talking about everything that happens so I can better inform all of you and be a better help and supporter for creators. So yeah, we've had location issues. All right. Okay. This is an awesome quote, and I use it all the time. One is none and two is one. Have any of you heard that quote before? Put it in the comments, put it in chat. Let me know. This is a great quote. And I can't emphasize this enough because it has happened in so many situations for us where, if we hadn't had two of a particular thing, then that one additional thing that we had as a backup, we would have been SOL. So two is one and one is none means that if you only have one of something, you really have none. If you have two of something, it means you only have one. So, things happen on set. Memory cards accidentally get wiped. Yeah, that's happened. Making sure that you have a digital imaging technician or DIT is important. That DIT's job is really making sure that they work with, for example, the data wrangler, or if their job is both DIT and data wrangler, making sure that there's not one copy, but two copies of something. When we're dumping chips, for example, we don't dump those chips from cameras to just one NAS or SSD or DAS, direct attached storage. We dump them to two different locations. A lot of the one of the things that's exciting about Hollywood right now is it's going through digital transformation. And there's a radical transformation happening within Hollywood as we moved from film cameras to digital cameras and now digital cameras to camera to cloud. And that's an awesome opportunity now where we can not only have two copies of a scene, for example, that was just shot, or a card that's full, as local copies on set, but we can now send proxies or even originals to the cloud. This allows editors remotely to be able to get their hands on data and even have not just a secondary, but a tertiary copy of something. And so that camera to cloud is a very powerful feature and ability to be able to keep more than just one copy of something. Casting and auditions is another very important responsibility. Character development must be done prior to casting. Please don't go into casting without having first done character development. Again, how can you have people audition for roles when you don't know who those characters are? Understanding at a very intimate level who your characters are before you cast is critical. Send out sides ahead of time before those casting calls. You know, I get that everyone is on a very expedited and radically fast timeline in pre-production and production and post-production. Time is money, time is of the essence. But making sure that you spend time to write those scripts and get those sides out to actors before they go to the auditions is going to be very helpful to the actors. And also, just because you've sent out sides ahead of time doesn't mean that you can't do impromptu request that they do impromptu lines. Give them lines to read, hopefully off book, but also allowing them to read if it's necessary. To read lines on the spot that they didn't have ahead of time will give you an idea of who they are and how seasoned they are of an actor. Again, here's the thing with with auditions: don't be creepy. Meaning that don't hold auditions for actors at your house. I get that we're in a pandemic world, post-pandemic world. Um, don't send out auditions for people having to come to your house. It's creepy. It's weird. Get a WeWork location if you need to, a Regis virtual office, whatever, a virtual conference room. Um, rent a conference room for a day, but don't ask people to go to people's houses. They don't know you. They have no idea if you're like some sort of serial killer or something. Just don't be creepy. Don't overwhelm the actor with too many crew members. You really don't need 50 people at that audition to show some sort of show of force, to show them how big of a crew you have. It's really intimidating as it is to audition for a role. There are definitely a lot more virtual auditions that are happening now, especially with how with COVID and what happened with that and people working from home. But so a lot of auditions are virtual now, but still you don't need 20, 30 people from your crew in that audition. You want to make it as relaxing of an environment as possible for that actor, because you want to get their best. You don't want them to be nervous. You want them to give their absolute best, so you know who it is that you're casting. Have a sign-in sheet. Make sure that whoever is showing up to that audition signs in. You get all of their contact information. And one thing that we learned in the process of what we've been doing with auditions is you need to make sure that another person is writing down who you're choosing for those roles. We did have a huge mistake that was made in an audition process where um, the person who was writing down the names of who we were casting got those names wrong. And we ended up bringing people to the table read and selecting people that we had no intention of selecting. And so you want to make sure that, again, one is none, and two is one. You want to make sure that there's more than one person writing down who you're selecting, so you have two copies of it as well as contact information. That's an incredibly embarrassing situation to be in when somebody shows up that you didn't actually want to cast. Now, in our situation, they worked out great. They were great actors and they were great for the role, and it really made the production. But we were lucky. We were lucky in that situation because they ended up being a great actor and being a permanent part of the cast. But it's you just want to make sure that you always have some sort of backup to your backup, if you will. Next is making sure that you have their contact information so you know how to reach out to them to let them know they got the part. Have selected actors do scenes with each other to evaluate chemistry. You really want to make sure that there's an actual chemistry between your actors. You don't want poor chemistry. I have seen that on set where two people were supposed to be two people were supposed to have an intimate relationship with each other and there was absolutely no chemistry whatsoever, and it came through in the final production. So making sure that sorry, that's my mom actually texting me. um So, making sure that, sorry, let me go on mute. Making sure that those actors have a chemistry with each other is important. Important. Notices can also be done on backstage as well. Oh, looks like I lost my camera for some reason. That's weird. Okay. If I lost camera, if you can't see me, I apologize. I don't know what happened, but it looks like I lost my camera. Um, so we'll keep going. That's okay. IT issues with live streams, right? Have selected actors do scenes with each other. Maybe you need to reevaluate whether or not someone should be casted for that role. Another thing, we use Backstage to do casting calls. If you haven't heard of it, I would definitely recommend you check that out.